Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where three grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name is Nacho, and joining me this week is Fred from How to RPG and the mighty glue stick himself, Mr. AJ Pickett.
Hey.
Hi. Let's do this twisted little bugger, shall we?
I'm
filling
voice-
up my drink.
My voice is very raspy. I had my work Christmas do yesterday, and I was drinking margaritas in the sun all day. But it's perfect for doing this. Yum yum.
All right.
Yeah. So today we're going because it's Christmas and it's actually the 40th anniversary for Gremlins. Well, it is for us. It came out in December for us, whereas it came out, I think, in June or July in America. But yeah, we got it. That was, remember, back in the day, movies were never released around the same time internationally. They were like, sometimes years between.
Yeah, but you could almost be guaranteed that we would be waiting at least 3 to 6 months before you'd see the movie that somebody else had seen in the States. And we didn't even know that was the case because you just didn't get that information anyway.
Yeah. And we didn't have social media to spoil it as well, so it wasn't ruined for us as well, which is great. So 1984, Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante, with special effects by Chris Wallace. Screenwriter was Chris Columbus. Executive producer was Steven Spielberg. Had a pretty unknown cast at the time. Phoebe Cates as Kate Berenger. Zach Galligan as Billy Peltzer. Hoyt Axton as Randall Peltzer, his dad. Frances Lee McCain as Lynn Peltzer. Polly Holiday as Ruby Deagle. Kay Luke as Mr. Wing. A very young Corey Feldman as Pete Foundain. And Dick Miller, who's always great, as Murray Futterman. A young man inadvertently breaks 3 important rules concerning his new pet and unleashes a horde of mischievous monsters on a small town. So, what is everyone's history with this film?
Well, childhood favorite, obviously. But I was a teen by the time it came out, so it just hit the sweet spot with me. I was its target audience essentially. Because it was like a kiddie type movie. I thought, Spielberg, cute animal, fluffy monster. Which is true. I mean, a large chunk of the movie has got Mogwai in it. So it is very much a Spielberg movie, fluffy monsters. But it's also got one hell of a special effects guy on it. And the special effects is very entertaining for a teenager and unexpectedly quite violent and good. And it's a Christmas movie, but it's a stealth Christmas movie like Die Hard. Christmas is going on around the movie, but it's not a focus of the movie. You know what I mean? It's just the background setting.
I still view this as a Christmas movie because when I saw it, it was December and we thought it was a Christmas movie, and the advertising really put it forward as being like a cutesy pie movie. It did not PG-13. We never heard of PG-13, and we didn't. I don't even know if it was advertised in New Zealand as PG-13.
It didn't exist before this movie. That's why. Yeah. So fun facts that we're going to cover later on. They invented a whole category for this movie.
It was this film and Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom are the two films that invented the PG.
So guess who is behind the PG-13 rating?
Spielberg,
that's right. Yeah, you can thank him.
Spielberg. So when I went to this movie, we were expecting a very different movie, and by the time I'd stepped out with my my uncle, my aunt, and my grandmother and my brother, we were like, what the hell did we just watch? It really was. It was not what we were expecting. And it was really hard to know. My brother loved it because it was gory and had lots of violence, lots of special effects and lots of creatures. So he loved it. And I was like, well, I still don't know how I feel about it. It's grown on me over the years, and I've started to realize more and more after watching it over and over that it's one of those perfect movies where there's really You know, there's only one thing I would really want to get out of this movie that isn't in the movie, but I'll explain that later because it's too confusing to mention it right now.
Yeah.
So it was a great movie, and I think we all established that we had a great time. But it was also, for me, it was definitely a Christmas movie because the theme of Christmas keeps coming up, and as you go through the plot and you start talking about some of these things, it will become abundantly clear.
Yeah.
It didn't just take place at Christmas; its whole setting was snow and Christmas, and then these constantly themes being dropped in that revolve around Christmas, and but it's the darker side of Christmas. It's not the nice cutesy pie part of Christmas. It's all the more horrible aspects of things that can happen at Christmas that that are highlighted.
Like you what, like your dad breaking his neck climbing down a chimney, for example?
He dressed as Santa Claus.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's an anti-Christmas film, because I think this film ruined a lot of kids' childhoods by like exposing that Santa Claus wasn't real.
Right.
I think there was a lot of parents that were like, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah.
I think that was one of the actual lines that got it lobbied to be a PG-13 or an yeah, because like there were a lot of upset mums because this movie outed Santa Claus and made them all look like liars, and they got really upset by it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And there's a lot of death. There's a lot of death in this movie, which
Yeah.
you know, when I was first watching it, I was like, "Did they die? Did they die?" And then you realize when you go back as an adult and watch it, oh yeah, oh they died. There
Mhm.
definitely was there were people dying left, right, and center. Yes, there's a bit of carnage going on here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you see a lot of the gremlin death is up close and personal because it's just puppets and special effects and they can get away with it. But there's a lot of people death that happens off camera. That's implied. Yeah. So yeah, for sure, people die
I
in this
mean,
movie.
Joe Dante. So he sort of cut his teeth on horrors prior to this. So he began his career editing trailers for Roger Corman, who is a notoriously like bad he was known for making low budget films in the 70s.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ironically,
then-
so it's Peter Jackson started off like this as well. He had a reputation for making cheesy horror films
Yeah.
before the Lord of the Rings things. That was why it was so unexpected for us Kiwis. It was like, what?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But sorry,
Meet
I
the
digress.
Feebles.
Oh, Meet the Feebles. Yeah, you have a hard time finding that these days. It's been hidden somewhat.
So Joe Dante's two previous films prior to this was 1978's Piranha, which was a parody of Jaws and caught his attention of Steven Spielberg. And he also did The Howling in 1981, which is a werewolf horror, which came out. It was kind of overshadowed by American Werewolf in London, which came out the same year. And
Totally
then,
overshadowed by,
yeah. Still a good film, though. The Howling is still a good film.
Oh, yeah. Much more popular in Australia, I think.
That's because they did in Australia. Howling 4, I think, is the one set in Australia. That's a terrible film. And he'd later go on to do some other like really great films after this. He'd do Explorers, Inner Space, The Burbs.
Really quirky films.
Yeah.
Explorers is one of those films that just disappeared from the zeitgeist. It's like you can't get a copy of the damn thing. When I first saw it, it was one of the coolest movies under the sun. It reminded me of Flight of the Navigator, but even better.
Yeah.
And yes, you know, you just don't see prints of that nowadays. I don't know why.
And it was such a weird script, like the whole. We should do a whole podcast on that movie.
We should.
Yeah.
If I can find a copy of it, yeah, absolutely.
Take a note, Nacho.
Yeah,
Take a
I'll
note.
put that one down.
But yeah, keep going, dude, because there's so many good things about this movie.
Chris Wallace was so I want to say that Chris Wallace was also, even though he was a special effects guy, he pretty much also directed the film, like, because Joe Dante would just come up with these crazy ideas. How about the Gremlins do this? How about the Gremlins do that? And it would be up to this like Chris Wallace to have to sort of like make these puppets. So I would almost credit him with co-directing this film in a lot of ways. He worked on, prior to this, he worked on Scanners, which is, have you ever seen Scanners? That is notoriously known for a head explosion scene. And he also did the classic melting face scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, and he went on to do shit like The Fly. So Enemy Mine was another one he did. Naked Lunch. So, yeah, two very talented guys. Obviously, Chris Columbus, very talented. So, yeah, Spielberg, executive producer, managed to get all these three people together, and yeah, it's a crazy film. So, do you want me? Should I go through the plot, or how do we want to do this?
Well, I was wondering, I'd like to talk a little bit more about Chris Columbus, because it's really weird how this all worked and how the script got turned into a movie. Because I was looking at some of the interviews with Spielberg, and Spielberg said that he would be taking home on a weekend about 20 scripts, and he would go through these scripts. And one of these scripts was called Gremlins. It was a really odd script, but he could see its potential as a sort of a devilish candy store of horror and fun. And it started off as mostly a horror story.
Yeah.
But not really comical or satirical, but it had elements of that. And he got Chris Columbus, who had written it, to just keep working on it. And I think Chris Columbus said he did anywhere from 7 to 10 rewrites on this thing, which was essentially a horror story. And Stephen was leaning, look, you need to tone it down and make it more acceptable to an audience that will actually watch it. And so it winds up being an odd mix of dark humor, the more and more you look at it. And he said, it got better and better and better. But his inspiration for this movie is weird, because he wrote Gremlins because his father used to talk about things that would stop the car from working when he was doing mechanical repairs on his car. The gremlins, the monsters in the machine that would mess with all of the parts. And also at the time, he was living in a loft where there were many mice living with him, unfortunately. And he used to have them pass by his fingers, and he used to have this fear of them nibbling on his fingers as they brushed past during the writing process. So it was all a sort of a marry of this. And so he got very obsessed with the script, and wound up spending, I think, 2 years at least, a good chunk of his life, just rewriting this thing until it got to a point where it was able to be turned into a movie. So when you look at this movie and you think, why is it so well and so tight, well developed and so tight? It's because it started with a really solid script, and then they had people adding to that solid script after that, and that's what really makes it stand out.
Yeah. The term gremlin originated in the Royal Air Force during World War II as a scapegoat for mechanical failures. And I think prior to that, it was only ever mentioned in one episode of The Twilight Zone called Nightmare at 2,000 Feet with William Shatner. So that was the only other sort of film or television program that had mentioned the word gremlin. Yeah, but yeah, it was a horror film. He wrote it as a spec script, never expecting it to get produced. It was just, he was just doing this to become a better script writer. And yeah, when he got the phone call from Spielberg, he was like, "Fuck off."
Yeah, he didn't believe it. Yeah,
no,
for
he
sure.
didn't believe it at all. No.
But also, too, this movie came out at a time, although Christmas is probably not the best time to release a movie like this. But I think in New Zealand it worked, even though we were really confused. And that is, horror comedies, this odd mix of horror and comedy, was growing in popularity at the time when it was released. So I think that was part of what was working, because they were competing with the likes of Ghostbusters and things like that, where you had elements of horror comedy going on. And its budget was not supposed to be as high as it is. It was $11 million. It was supposed to be a lot cheaper. The people who were making it were all people who were used to making movies on nothing, like shoestrings. But it did blow out because it got more and more complicated, and Spielberg wasn't terribly happy about this. But in the end, it didn't matter, because worldwide it made a profit of $212 million. And if you do the maths for any movie, you just multiply your budget by 3 or 4, and if you've made that much, that's you covered your cost. So it only needed to make about 33 or 44 million dollars, and then everything on top of that, all the marketing's paid for, all of the cut for the theaters is covered, and you just got profit. So they made a lot of money off this little movie, and it did something that most movies don't do. First weekend, did all right. Second weekend, made more money than the first weekend. Movies don't do that. They
It was
drop
weird,
off.
yeah. Like in the States, it went head to head with Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And it actually, in New York, Gremlins made more money than Ghostbusters because New Yorkers were pissed off with Ghostbusters because they shut down all the streets and everything during filming. So they were like, fuck you, we're going to go support the opposition. So, yeah. Should I go through the plot and we can stop and start? So the film starts off with a struggling inventor, Randall Peltzer, visiting Chinatown looking for a Christmas gift for his son, Billy. And Randall discovers a creature called a mugwai, which is actually Cantonese for devil. The store's owner, Mr. Wing, refuses to sell it, but his grandson secretly does, warning Randall of the 3 rules. Avoid exposing it to light, especially sunlight, which can kill it. Do not let it come into contact with water, and never feed it after midnight. So what do we think? This film works on the audience belief of these rules. So what do you think of these rules? Like,
Well, first of all, it's straight up Chinese folklore mythology. And the interesting thing is that this is very clear in the original movie that that's what it was intended to be, and that's what the backstory and the solid foundation. They did a novelization of the movie that came out immediately after, and it wasn't based on the script. And it was very, very weird and very sci-fi. And thankfully, they scrapped that when they came up with stuff after the movie. There was an animated cartoon that carried on the adventures of Mogwai, etc. But he's very much a Chinese mythology thing. So he was like in the back room, the magic shop in Chinatown is the mystical setting, essentially location, which can be anywhere and nowhere. It's the traveling merchant shop, it's the bazaar of wonders. It's the backstreet dealing, the black market. Who knows what be careful what you wish for, sort of, or what you pay for, sort of lesson. It's all set up perfectly. And the son selling it out from under his granddad is really funny too.
Yeah, that Eastern sort of mysticism was in vogue at the time with, I guess, films like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah,
the Golden Child.
Golden Child came out. So that was it. Epitomized it perfectly.
Yeah.
Also, Chris Columbus was saying that he used to spend a lot of time in Chinatown, and he liked the little sort of shops off to the side that were sort of hidden. He's always quite scared to go into them, and so he modelled that shop off them, like what he was sort of envisaging from those types of stores and so forth in Chinatown. What I find amusing about this movie and the 3 rules is how important they are. They are explained to us twice, by the little boy and by the father, and almost straight away they break all 3 rules. And it's not like Billy's like, I've got to make sure I don't spill water on them because they multiply. And I'm like, didn't your dad say don't do that? And the dad sort of like, oh really? Oh, okay, all right, so that's interesting. So yes, the rules seem to suddenly be highly unimportant until they are highly important because they don't become mugwai, and then they become gremlins. So yeah, let's keep going.
So in Kingston Falls, Billy works at the bank and worries about his dog Barney being targeted by the mean-spirited Ruby Deagle. Can we talk about Mrs. Deagle? She is fucking awful. She's like the Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah.
I forgot how nasty she was. Like she's like threatening to boil his dog.
Mm-hmm.
She they don't have characters like this in movies anymore.
Well, she's so horrible that there's that scene we first meet her, and she's got that silly head in her hand. She comes up to a mother with 2 kids who are obviously sick and coughing away and hungry, and they can't pay the rent. And she's like, I just need a little bit more time. It's Christmas. I'm really struggling to get the money. And she said, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. And Mum's like, having to take the kids away, and they're complaining about being hungry. And she said, "Yes, I am too. I understand." And yes, yeah, that was sort of hitting home to what the darker side of Christmas, where there are a lot of people in Christmas aren't having a good time. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, she felt like an Ebenezer Scrooge type character, I think, to me. Well, that's what she was kind of set up. But they went hard. This film goes hard in a lot of places.
yeah,
So yeah, Randall gives Billy the Mugwai, which is now called Gizmo, as a Christmas gift, and explains the rules. Billy's friend, Pete Foundain, accidentally spills water on Gizmo, causing him to spawn 5 mischievous Mugwai, led by an aggressive Stripe, identified by a white mohawk. I want to say that Corey Feldman is so good in this film. I forgot how much I used to like this guy back in the day. He was almost the lead as well, but Spielberg decided to age up Billy, so they kind of bought in. So Billy was originally meant to be 12 years old in the original script, but they wanted to age him up, so they basically made Corey Feldman a side character rather than the main character. So
Interesting.
yeah.
I've never really thought about it, but yeah, that's an interesting choice.
Billy brings one of the Mugwais to Roy Hansen, his science teacher, for examination. Hansen conducts some experiments producing another Mugwai, and Stripe and his gang trick Billy into feeding them after midnight by severing his clock's power cord, and that leads them to transform into their cocoon forms. The cocoon form hatches, revealing destructive reptilian gremlins. This is where the film starts to become a totally different film.
yeah.
So yeah, the school teacher is kind of killed off camera. This scene was meant to be so much more gruesome, but we'll get there when we go into the facts. While the others terrorize the Peltzer household, Billy's mother manages to kill several gremlins, but Stripe escapes to the local YMCA pool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to dive into this?
Well, can I just say that there are certain characters in this movie that get really good parts, and usually, if you're playing the mother, it's a boring part. You do the same old thing. But the actress who's playing the mother gets one of the best parts in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Frances Lee McCain, I think it is,
Yes.
playing Lynn, the housewife. She gets to use all these house appliances and tools and utilities to pretty much kill, vanquish, and blow up gremlins in a microwave. Oh my gosh! The
guerrilla warfare, basically.
Yeah, the outcry people had when they saw that scene, and like, well, now what if kids start putting their pets into the microwave to see if they blow up? Of course, no kids did this.
No.
Okay.
If they're going to do that, they're going to do that anyway, regardless of watching a movie to do it.
Yeah, and then putting them through a blender and stabbing them with knives and like all sorts of horrific things go on, and she survives. And it's one of the what it made that character really stand out and have a lot of impact. Where you often Mum gets sort of sidelined as she shows up at the end to say how terrible everything was. So I really like this scene.
She, like how you mentioned, the film was meant to be a lot darker. The original script. In the original script, Billy was meant to come in, and her severed head was meant to be thrown down the stairs at him.
Yeah.
So she was killed, and the dog was killed as well. Which I think is the reason why they just got rid of the dog halfway through the film, because they didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, you can't kill the dog. And also, I get the feeling that Steven Spielberg makes decisions based on the actors when he's working with them, and just bumps them up in the roles in the movies or not, depending on whether he likes working with them or not. And that's perfectly legit. She's a very very good actress, so he probably went, you know what? Yeah, let's bring in some more scenes, because they probably had a B team doing all the special effects stuff, because like the Gremlin stuff was very involved, and they had a lot of scenes where the Gremlins were just doing stuff amongst themselves.
No,
So
they didn't have a beating. This had a
really,
production nightmare.
Yeah.
No, this was all like there were just times. There was a time when Warner Brothers went there to check on the set, and because the Gremlins kept breaking down on them,
right?
and obviously apart from the special effects artists, no one else could work. So Warner Brothers went to go check on this film, and they walked in one day to find the entire cast and crew, apart from the special effects guy, all asleep. Not meant to be filming because they couldn't do anything because the rest of them were all trying to fix the Gremlins.
Right.
Yes. So,
Whereabouts with that? That wasn't at Industrial Light and Magic though, was it?
No, it was in the backlot of Burbank. So yeah, another fact will pop up.
So
this was
probably
filmed,
stinking hot.
It was stinking
day.
hot. You can tell, like, because they're all dressed up in winter clothes, and you can tell when you watch the film now.
Yeah.
You look at Billy, like, why is he so sweaty? And it's like, because it's probably like 40 degrees, and he's like having to wear like all this like winter clothing and stuff and run around the set.
People have died in that studio, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a wrong decision. I can imagine if they had killed the mum and had her head rolling down the stairs and killed the dog.
It would have been way too much too soon.
Yeah, it would have been way too much. But it's gone too far, because here's the problem with horror movies: is they often wind up killing off everybody that you love, and there's maybe one character left if you're lucky, and at the end, you just feel like shite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling. But at the end of this movie, even though a lot of people die, there are a lot of people that are sort of lesser characters, so it's not quite, the impact is not quite as bad. Whereas if we had killed off, the mum and the dog and the father and his best friend, it would have been different.
Yeah.
It would have been a different feel to the movie. Yeah.
Also adds to the later chaos as well, because you don't know. It hasn't been set up. You haven't had a big lead in that this person's a bad person, so they're definitely going to deserve it and die later on. Because American movies do that a lot. Is set up, this person deserves to die because they were mean to a kid or something. Or they kicked a dog, or put a cat in a dumpster.
Yeah.
So the Gremlins start to wreak havoc on Kingston Falls, injuring and killing many residents, including Mrs. Deagle, who has a hilarious death on the what are those things called that you go up the stairs that they can no longer electric stair chair or
electric stairs essentially.
And Dick Miller's character gets run over by a snowplow. He's the guy that's constantly racist against like foreign machinery,
right?
It's weird that talking shite about machinery from overseas deems you necessary to be killed off in a movie.
Particularly in 1980s. It doesn't really add up.
It's really, really odd, because nowadays, it's quite legitimate to say that there is a lot of stuff made overseas that isn't very good. But then again, none of us have American cars or vehicles over here, and then they're not that good either. So,
back in the early 80s, it was all power suits. That's probably why the mum was such a strong character too. It was just like, no, I'm a strong, independent woman, and also like America wanted it to be Japanese at that point too. They had a very, very firm fixation on Japanese culture and business culture and stuff. So
there's a lot of hidden messages, I think, in this film about consumerism. With the dad's inventions, and he's always trying to upsell things, and then they're always going on about it's the perfect, like, the whole thing is he's just trying to find a present, and then the foreign there's lots of little consumerism sort of messages hidden throughout the film. So
his inventions are hilarious. Like Piltzer inventions, those gizmos. I mean, he even calls the Mogwai Gizmo. Probably, but those inventions are a menace too, not just the Gremlin.
They made those on set as well. The cast reactions to them were actually like real reactions, because they wouldn't tell them what they would do. Like, they just would say, use this thing, and the cast would be like, they have no idea what's going to go wrong with it. So it was brilliant.
Yeah. But really smart, really funny. And what's even funnier is that people later made these things. They might not have existed at that time, but later they were made after the release of the movie. Of course, they didn't do the crazy stuff that they did in the movie, but Yeah, it's a
It's so meta.
odd element.
Yeah. Like,
And he uses his inventions she uses his inventions to kill a few of the. Doesn't she use the orange?
Yeah.
The orange thing.
Yeah.
The orange juicer.
Yeah, well, it's with inexplicable blades out the top of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the police are overwhelmed by the chaos. So can we talk about how useless these policemen are? Like when he goes to report it, they're on the piss, like clearly drunk. And it was the dude from what's his name? From Breaking Bad was in it as well. He was the young cop. Oh my god, it's going to bug me the name, but yeah. Then Billy has to go rescue Kate from the bar. That bar scene is
he doesn't really rescue her. She rescues herself. He
True.
just happens to show up as she's getting out. So she can handle herself. She just needed a ride, and he just happened to show up at the right time to have a ride. She would have been fine. She would have made it out.
This had some of my favorite Gremlin moments. I especially love Flasher Gremlin. He's probably my favorite Gremlin out of all of them.
She had some of the best Gremlins in that scene.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny how Kate's character, which would normally be a nothing character, it's just a love interest. You know, our love interests, they're just there for a bit of a nookie and a kiss and so forth. None of that ever happens. There's no sex. There's not even a kiss. Do they even?
No.
They don't even kiss. It's like it was like this girlfriend was designed for a 12-year-old who they got aged up. Oh, hang on, that probably happened, didn't it? So it's a really weird situation.
You like I say, Corey Feldman was meant to be the lead, so it probably was. Yeah.
It's written that way. There's no sort of kissy, smoochy, no teenage stuff going on whatsoever. Really, we never see any of that. So she has some banger scenes, and I think the bar scene is one of the best scenes that she gets.
She's not in the movie much, but when she is in it, she's really good.
Oh yeah.
And she then decides to give that her traumatic Christmas speech, where she tells why she hates. So throughout the film, she's always like, "I hate Christmas, I hate Christmas."
Yeah.
And then she reveals why she hates Christmas, which is her dad dressed up as Santa Claus to surprise her and went to crawl down the chimney, which is fucking an idiotic thing to do, and fell down and broke his neck. So she, found out that her dad was dead, and also Santa isn't real. So
so did the entire audience of whatever children happened to be watching this movie inappropriately. But yeah.
Do you know that scene was so contentious? Like Spielberg didn't want it in there. All of the executives at Warner Bros. Did not want it in there, and Joe Dante and Chris Columbus said, no, it has to be there. This is what differentiates this movie from every other movie.
Yeah.
And when I saw that scene as a kid or teenager, I was so convinced that could actually happen. And we used to talk about it at school about this. And later on in life, you're like, hang on. How the hell is a person supposed to fit down a chimney? They're not that wide. They're not that big. You would not be able to fit. So even if you manage to climb up onto the roof and try to stick your leg in there, you're not going to get very far. So this doesn't make any sense. It's not like an industrial chimney that's producing,
it's an American chimney, God damn it.
Yeah, they're big enough. You can drive a car through their chimney.
Yeah. Got the biggest goddamn chimneys in the world.
This whole film is based on dads trying to do dumb shit for their kids at Christmas.
Yeah. So you get a lot of that. Again, back to the strong independent woman thing in the early 80s. It cannot be understated that like they set Wonder Woman 1984 for a reason, because it was all power shoulders and pantsuits and androgyny and Annie Lennox and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite common, like the Thing movie, for instance, and other movies, the males protagonists in the movie were quite often inept, daffy, stupid. They were kind of the comedy relief, but they were also action heroes because they leapt in and did stupid shit. So it was kind of good that way. The action heroes could have a sense of humor. And
Yeah.
in this movie, it's kind of he's the straight guy to all the comedy which is going on. He's horrified, but he's watching as the audience member who's the participant as well. But it's the women who carry a lot of the scenes and kill a lot of the gremlins in this movie. They're far more lethal than the guys are, which is really it's interesting. It's a refreshing era in movies in China, in American history, I think.
Yeah.
But also to think about when you first saw this movie, because my reaction when I heard this story was it was really convincing. I mean, she's so convincing when she puts this monologue forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason why Joe Dante wanted to keep it, because she put in so much work for this one particular scene as well, and he was like, "We can't cut that. She's in the film, fuck all." And this is a really good scene, and she did it really well. So it was another reason as well as he wanted to keep it because of her performance.
Yeah.
But also too, you think about your response, because I don't know if your response was this, but my response was, "Oh my God, that is the most horrible thing to possibly happen." And then the scene sort of transitions out and we move out of it. And I'm shocked and emotional. Oh my God, I could not imagine that happening. And then I'm starting to snigger and laugh. And I don't understand why I'm sniggering and laughing. But I'm actually finding that story that she's given me quite funny. And then you go watch it again and again and again. And you're like, oh my God, it is such an over-the-top story. When you start thinking about the reality of this, you got an audience that is horrified, but also is laughing.
Yeah.
And not laughing at the time, but just a little bit after. And you're trying to marry up. Why am I laughing? Not laughing at the thing I'm seeing on screen. I'm laughing about what happened just before, because it took a little while for my brain to figure out what the heck was going on.
Yeah.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, it's just such a change of tone. It's like when you ask someone how they're feeling and they actually tell you, and you wish you immediately regret asking.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it was just a rhetorical question. I was just being nice.
Yeah, it's like giving you permission to be relieved, and relieved through laughing is fine, even if it's horrific.
And Phoebe Cates does a great job of playing that. It really does. And they later on made Gremlins 2, right? And took the piss out of that scene big time.
That film is insane. Gremlins 2. So Billy and Kate then find the Gremlins gathered in a theatre watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Do you want to know how this film got greenlit to be shot?
That was the test bit they did, didn't it? Wasn't it?
So Kathleen Kennedy, our friend, who was the executive producer of Star Wars, she started Amblin Movies, and she was the one that managed to get permission.
Kathleen Kennedy, who made Star Wars.
Star Wars, sorry.
Star Wars.
Yeah, true. Yeah, she's responsible for Snow White.
Yeah, but she didn't make Amblin Studios. She was the head of it. Part of it. There's three.
So they cause a gas explosion, killing most of the gremlins. However, Stripe has left the theater to get more candy. He survives, and he goes to a department store where he tries to spawn more gremlins using a water fountain. That Gizmo uses a Barbie car, I think it was. To open a skylight, exposing Stripe. This is a great scene when he dies as well. Exposing him to sunlight, and he just kind of melts. That scene was
the
gross.
whole reason why Stripe survives from one disaster to the next is because he can go and squint at the camera and sneak off into an alleyway. That's purely why he stays around.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And that's pretty much the film. As the town recovers, Mr. Wing turns up to reclaim Gizmo, and he pretty much criticizes Americans for their carelessness.
He's essentially the magic man who shows up and takes care of it. The abjuration wizard who swoops him to save the day, and you get the feeling he's done it a lot.
Yeah.
They were pretty careless. They forgot the 3 rules pretty quickly. It's only when they start dealing with gremlins that are killing people things really get out of hand. Do you remember the scene? I was thinking about it, and I didn't make a note of this, but I was just thinking about the scene when the cops are in the car. They're going out with Billy to check on things, and suddenly there's chaos in the town, and they're watching somebody with all these gremlins chewing on a person, trying desperately to get them off, and they just sit there and watch.
And they're pissed. They've been drinking whiskey. They're in the
Yeah,
station when he turns up. They're all drunk.
And then the next minute, they don't go and help.
No.
They drive away trying to escape and crash their car. That's how bad it is. I mean, yes, it's
Mrs. Deagle comes flying out the window on her chair, lands in front of them.
Mass hysteria.
That Christmas Carol scene is great though. When she opens the door and they're all so apparently that scene is the reason. So costumes, rather than like build lots of different types of gremlins, they soon figured out that these things would be costly. That they went for different varieties of costumes would be an easier way to kind of distinguish. And it was after that Christmas Carol scene, and then they just went nuts with the costumes after that. There was like no bad ideas, including a flash of gremlin.
Yeah, I imagine the entire cast got involved.
They did.
Like, we need everybody making costumes, and they would have been into it, totally into it.
It's surprising how that actress Polly Ann Holiday, who plays Ruby, who winds up dying, plays a villain that's. I mean, to be fair, we probably want her to die more than the gremlins.
Do you know who didn't die that you never really see again, and I forgot about him, and he's really good in the film, is Judge Reinhold's character, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25, the guy that's like works at the bank with him, that's in Beverly Hills Cop, and he just plays this douche.
He does.
What happens to him?
We never hear about that character again.
No.
Yeah. He's just there to depict, the going mentality,
the materialism
of the time, I would imagine,
and
the fact
culture.
that Billy is not with it and should be actually working a bit harder and trying to move up the ladder, and he's not doing that, I think.
Yeah. So, do you want to get into some facts, or what do you want to discuss?
Go for the facts.
Okay, so I've already gone through some of these. The term where Gremlins originated from. So Tim Burton almost directed this film, but Spielberg considered Tim Burton, he didn't have enough experience behind him. So that would have been a totally different film. And I guess Joe Dante was picked up because he had done Piranha and The Howling, and he knew this film had a lot of special effects, and Dante already had experience working with special effects in those other two films. We'd already mentioned that the earlier drafts included more gruesome scenes like Billy's mum's severed head being thrown down the stairs, killing the dog, and Billy's teacher being stabbed in the face multiple times with hypodermic needles. What's the other one?
I actually think I remember a scene like that, but I haven't seen it in the cut that I was watching. I think I have seen something like that in the scene. So I think they did actually shoot that. I just don't think they kept it.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around what a Tim Burton version of this movie would be. I like it.
Originally Gizmo was meant to become Stripe, but Spielberg, after seeing the creature design of Gizmo, decided that he should become a sidekick, and kind of shelved. Which I think, what's his name, the actor that played Billy, was a little bit annoyed about, because he was originally signed up to be a lead actor, and then suddenly he was sidelined to basically pay a sidekick to a puppet.
But it's Steven Spielberg, so fuck you.
Yeah.
He actually had a scene with the death of Stripe, right? There's a scene where he actually is the one who reveals the sunlight and kills Stripe rather than Gizmo. And shot this scene with the crew, did a little bit of stunt work, which he was very proud of, apparently, which just sounded like he just jumped over something. And then was really upset when he saw the cut of the movie, and his scene is gone. And now it's Mugwai who's releasing the sunlight into the shop and killing off Stripe. And he was kind of miffed. And it was funny because Joe Dante said, it's not called Billy's Crazy Adventures. It's called Gremlins.
Yeah, it's not called Peoples. It's called Gremlins.
Reel it in a bit, buddy. Reel it in.
Yeah. I mean, he hadn't really done that many parts at the time. And he was really lucky that he got that movie in the first place. He really was. Yeah. And let's get real. His character, is probably the least interesting character in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Every other character is far more interesting. Heck, even the mother with the 2 children that's trying to pay her rent is more interesting than that character.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's just playing a part. He does the part well, but it's not really I didn't really feel like it was a part that would have changed very much. I feel like Phoebe would have been able to play against any actor playing as Billy,
Well,
and
that's
would have been
how
fine.
he got the part. So Emilio Estevez and Judd Nelson were considered, but Zach Galligan won the role due to his chemistry with Phoebe during the audition. So apparently he came across when he did the audition that he was actually genuinely in love. Like, I mean, she's a beautiful lady. So he was infatuated with her, and like they picked up on this chemistry between them. So that was the reason he got the role. When what's his name, Joe Dante, got the script and chose the special effects guy, he sent the script to him with all the changes he had made and what he wanted to do, and he sent it to Chris Wallace, who was a special effects guy. Apparently Chris Wallace sent the script back with such production notes as no, fuck off. Because he wanted to use like thousands and thousands of gremlins in scenes. Like, Joe Dante just was this like idea machine of like, how about we do this? And apparently those two, even though they constantly fought on the set, and it sounded like it was a bit of a nightmare production. It was a good time. They both had a good time, but Joe Dante was like, how about we do this? And let's add this and do this. And during that time, Chris Wallace got really sick, almost had a nervous breakdown, like trying to just like keep up with the demands that Joe Dante was coming up with.
Yeah, because it's not like they had CGI back in that day, or even the technology for puppetry was not that advanced.
Yeah,
there are so many cables strapped to actors and on the floor and around the sets.
Yeah,
bit of a nightmare.
So one of Joe Dante's idea was like he didn't want to use puppets at first, so he wanted to use monkeys that were wearing Gremlins masks.
Jesus Christ.
Chris Wallace said to him, "This is a fucking stupid idea.
It's a terrible idea."
Joe Dante was like, "How would you know, Chris? No one's done it before." They put a mask on a monkey for a test screen. Apparently, it just trashed Dante's office and shit everywhere. And Chris Wallace just turned around and said, "Like, let's just use puppets."
Try putting a mask on a cat for a start. Okay, now magnify that by 10. Add shit. And that's a monkey.
And not only this monkey's quite strong. It'll hurt you.
It'll tear your face off. Yeah. The
animatronic gizmo malfunctioned so frequently and kept breaking down. Apparently it had like this comically sounding like spring noise that the crew would just hear. And like when that went, everyone would like go, "Oh, for fuck's sake." And it would stop production for like hours till they had to fix it, and no one else could do anything. So Joe Dante, they hated it. They hated Gizmo. Like the crew hated Gizmo. So he, to sort of like boost morale, he put an idea board up on this thing of like things that you could do to Gizmo, and one of them including throwing darts at him, which ended up making its way in the film.
That's right. Yes, the list. Horrible things to do to Gizmo.
Most of the lines were improvised. The microwave scene was done using a balloon that was full of viscera and then microwaved until it exploded.
Mm-hmm.
It also shared film sets with Back to the Future. So Hill Valley and Kingston Falls are the same film set. Howie Mandel did the voice of Gizmo, who is most known to us in New Zealand as one of the hosts of America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
And Gizmo's iconic song was sung by a 13-year-old girl. Other voice actors that were involved was Frank Weller, who is known as from Scooby-Doo, and also Michael Winslow from Police Academy did some voices. It also went through a lawsuit with the Furbies. Apparently the Furbies resembled Gizmo, and that was settled outside of court, and they had to redesign the Furbies. It was released the same day as Ghostbusters, which we came through. We covered.
Mm-hmm.
they immediately wanted sequels for this film. And some ideas that came up were Gremlins in Las Vegas and Gremlins in Outer Space.
Yeah, the Gremlins in Outer Space thing came from the novel that they came up with. Essentially, the guy who wrote the novel just had free reign, and he didn't read any background material and just went way off. So, yeah, if you ever want a novelization of a movie which is very interesting and not at all what you expect, Gremlins is a perfect example.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'll be like reading it going, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Gremlins in that are like a part of a galactic thing going on, and yeah, it's very, very weird. It's very weird.
Sounds very Highlander 2.
Even more so than Highlander 2. Yeah.
I want to do Highlander 2 so badly.
So if you take Highlander 2 and throw it in the garbage, and then set the garbage on fire, then piss on the garbage, and then scatter it into an area with wombats, which have the driest shit in the world, then eat it and poop out little briquettes of it and set that on fire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And complaints about Gremlins and Indiana Jones: The Temple of Doom from concerned parents, mostly mothers, led to Spielberg creating a PG-13 rating.
Right.
So
yeah.
Although
R rating.
Yeah, so although the movie didn't have any boobs in it, essentially, this is what it came down to. It's like there's excessive amounts of violence in this movie, but there's no boobs. It's like, well, okay, so it's appropriate for kids to watch it because it's a kids movie. It's like, yeah, there's no
Temple
sex.
of Doom I can understand because a guy literally gets his heart ripped out of his chest.
Yeah, so it's like action. So it's action movie violence, but there's no sex in it. Essentially, that's what the PG-13 is all about. It's for teenagers. Yeah, teenage
and
boys.
I think you're allowed one swear word.
Right.
One,
and you make it count.
Yeah. They do it quite comically. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You got some. I'm sure Freda's got more facts that I missed.
So I was kind of really like the music score for this movie. It's surprisingly how good it is. In fact, I remember Joe Dante saying that he had quite a few arguments with Jerry Goldsmith, who did the musical score, about how the music should be, and Jerry was like, no, that's not how it should be done. So there were a lot of arguments between them, and Joe said at the end, like, Jerry was right every single time. But the music stands out. When you hear that music, you think Gremlins. Like, you don't think of anything else. It's like hearing the Jaws theme, dun 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 dun. When you hear the dancing darkness of the Gremlins theme, it stands out. You know what you're doing, what exactly what it is. I was kind of shocked that Randall, is it Hoist Oxton? Hoist Oxton. He really plays a pretty good harebrained inventor.
Yeah,
and there's
he's great in the film.
He is great. He for the part that he's playing, he's
terrible dad.
Terrible dad.
Terrible but dad. You believe it. Like, you believe it's not. He's not intentionally a bad dad. He's just
shit inventor.
through his nature, he's not that way inclined.
Yeah. But did you notice that when he goes to this Inventors Expo, there's a scene in there, one scene, where there's what looks like some sort of weird machine, and it's actually sort of like a depiction of an old style time machine. If you look at the old time machine movie, they've got a machine in the background that you can see as he's making a phone call that looks kind of like that. And then they cut away, and then they cut back. And if you look in the background, he's still talking on the phone, but the time machine is gone, and there's just like a black patch, and they're trying to figure out where it's gone to. So it's literally traveled through time. There's a lot of scenes like that.
I have a feeling that would be a Spielberg Easter egg or something. Because isn't Robbie the robot in there as well?
Yeah.
And was there a Dalek?
I don't know about Dalek, but I know Robbie the robot's there.
Yeah.
So we've got two magical scenes. One's the invention place, where the magic is happening outside of the obvious, And then you've got, of course, the Chinatown scene where you've got the legit magic shop.
He's banging on about this fucking bathroom buddy.
Yeah.
Such a shit invention.
Yeah.
It's like his invention of the year that he's pushing everything into.
Yeah.
It's like, I really feel good about this one.
I thought he was going to, because he does mention when he multiplies, like, the pelts are pet. We can sell these. And I why didn't he go with that?
Well, I mean, he's gone from you just can't don't give him a bath, and now they multiply when you put water on them. Oh, well, now we can sell them as a pet. Ching ching, money,
Sea
money,
monkeys, sea monkeys,
sea monkeys.
Yeah.
But strange. There's another thing about this movie, which is there's a lot of cameos in this film, and they're not cameos from famous actors. There's cameos from people behind the camera crew, who did lots of little quirky little parts as side characters in the background. So it's not like this film had a lot of, is it stand-ins? Not stand-ins. There's not a lot of extras.
No.
The film is full up with the crew playing extras.
Well, they spent all their money on Gremlins. They went hard on the Gremlins, which is to this film's strength. You know, they knew that's what the film was. So, that all the money that they had just went on the effects, and everything else got sidelined, which I think was a smart decision in the end.
Yeah, it was very much a set production. So it was designing the environment and all of the creatures which went into it.
Almost wasn't filmed on a set. So Dante wanted to film it in a location, and it was it was Chris Wallace. It was like him and Dante worked so well together, but they didn't at the same time. Like they really had conflicting ideas, but they listened to each other, which I think is really important. You've got two different people that come from two different mindsets. Like Dante was the big idea guy, and Chris Wallace was the practical guy. Like, well, how are you going to do this? So he's like, are you fucking insane?
I get the feeling that there was another guy there that was the practical engineer guy who was probably the set and stage sound guy who probably went, the floor can't, will support that sort of. We'll need a joist over here and blah, blah, blah. We'll need to screen this and baffle that, and we can shoot it from this angle. And they would have been like,
okay. They were saying like, how do you want us to do like multiple Gremlins on a location?
Yeah. And this is before they had, massive and all those computer, so they if you wanted to do multiple Gremlins, you had to literally do masking of Gremlins. So you physically painted them onto film, or did rotocopies, which is taking individual black background photos of individual Gremlins, and then you put them over top, masking over and over with the photo. Depending
on what Gremlin they were using, they had up to 1 to 12 operators, like depending on what they needed them to do. So, and he was really clever. So, like little things like making Gizmo walk, like was really hard. So that's why they stuck him in a backpack, and sticking him in a backpack was able to hide lots of mechanical stuff they could operate. Which is the other reason why Billy looks so fucking sweaty all the time, is because he's wearing all this winter gear, lobbing around this heavy ass animatronic puppet.
Like, we don't need you to act. Can you carry around 20 pounds all day? It's like, I think so.
Yeah.
You'll do, kid.
But there was lots of improv, and there was lots of like there was no bad ideas. I don't know if you've ever seen Key and Peele's script. They do like a skit on Gremlins 2, and it's like, you think of an idea, it's in the film. You think of an idea, it's in the film. So like he was just getting like with whatever they had on location, like for example, the Barbie car that was just made up on the spot. Like, why don't we use that? The chainsaw scene, that was Billy just like, hey, there's a chainsaw here. Why don't we have a chainsaw versus a baseball bat? Like there was just lots of like improv, and Dante was kind of like, no, it's brilliant. Let's do it. No, let's do that. Let's have a flashy Gremlin. Let's put more costumes. And it was Chris that was what I can see why he almost like died making this film, because he was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, he's the guy that had to come up with it all the time, and but fair enough, they got it done.
Yeah, but they still shot everything that was in the script, but they did add stuff to it, and not everything they improvised made it to the final cut.
No.
So yeah, it's the filmmaking process. You shoot your script, and if you've got some better ideas that you think might work, you shoot them if you've got time, and if they're good enough and they make sense and they can work in the film, you put them in. So that all sort of gels nicely. There's an aspect to this film, and I had mentioned it before, that this movie is like a perfect film.
Hmm.
Like it's got so many elements to it, even though dark horror comedy may not be your thing. There's an aspect to this film which always stood out for me, and I could never understand. And I don't know if maybe it's just me, but whatever happened to the mother who had to pay her rent and had these two kids to feed? We never got an answer. Like, come on, we needed to know the answer to that terrible plight. We never get an answer. We find out what happens to the Gremlins, but we don't know what happened to her and her kids. Come on, give us that scene. Yeah.
What happened to Judge Reinhold's character, for example?
Yeah. I didn't really
Yeah.
care about what happened to his character. If he lived or died, it didn't really matter. He wasn't so much of a shite that you really needed to see him perish anyway.
Yeah.
Um, there's
He's a great
scene-
actor, though.
Yeah.
Great
There's,
actor.
there's a scene in here that was stop motion. Do you remember when the Gremlins come down the street?
Mm.
They didn't use puppets. They literally had this be stop motion. And I remember seeing that scene and thinking, "Oh my God, there are so many of these things." And it's weird because it's all miniatures. And the funny thing is, apparently while they were doing it, one of the lights blew out, and they couldn't replace the light, so they just keep shooting it. Joe said, "No, just keep doing your stop motion stuff," and they just went in and put the light in digitally later on. Which I thought was hilarious. It's like, okay,
We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post.
Fix it in post. So that's a great scene. And then
Yeah.
I would imagine that people didn't really understand this movie was going to be so popular. There was a lot of merchandise that didn't get created till after this movie. And decades, like 10 years later, there was merchandise for Gremlins, and there's still merchandise for Gremlins. And the last time we had a Gremlins movie, which was Gremlins 2, was a long time ago. It is amazing that something like this has managed to sort of each generation seems to gravitate to this thing. It's quite surprising. I guess it's like Star Wars. Like, every generation seems to eventually stumble upon Star Wars and fall in love with it. And
Like dinosaurs, Spielberg again. Yeah. Monster movies. Yeah. It is surprising that Spielberg didn't have merchandise and stuff ready to go. I don't know. He didn't really sell a lot of merchandise for ET, did he? Really? It's like
No.
But ET has fallen out of the zeitgeist. It was really popular at the time, and if you think,
I think it's just that ET was stupid looking. Let's face it.
So, I mean, we got some big movies in 1984 as well, like Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, The Terminator, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Karate Kid, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Police Academy, Revenge of the Nerds, Footloose, 16 Candles, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, Splash, Red Dawn, Romancing the Stone, Last Starfighter, Purple Rain, 2010, June. There's some Conan the
bangers,
Destroyer.
some real bangers, man.
Yeah, there was some big
and some movies that weren't very good but have developed a cult following. Let's get real.
Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh my, yes, very very much so.
We need to talk about that film sometime.
Yeah.
Do we though?
I don't know. I don't know if they could make this film again.
Oh, yeah, I do.
I don't know if they could make this film again. I just wonder, even though they have the better technology, I don't know if they can necessarily make this movie again and it work. And
you mean Buckaroo?
No, Gremlins.
Oh, Gremlins.
I just don't know if they can.
This kind of released a whole subgenre of film, which I kind of want to call little shit films, where rather than make monsters
ghoulies.
Yeah, to make monsters big, they kind of doubled down on the smaller monster. Yeah, like you say, critters, ghoulies, chub, even small soldiers.
Munchies.
Yeah. Like there was this suddenly after Gremlins, there was a whole heap of these. Like, were they like rip-off films or
Yeah, they were.
homage films? Yeah,
They were rip-off films. They were really trying to do the same thing that Gremlins had achieved, because Gremlins really responded in the box office unlike any movie normally does. You don't usually get a bigger box office the second weekend, and you don't usually make. I mean, for $11 million, making $212 million in profit. You think about that return. How big a return is that? It essentially, once you've paid everything off, it's made about 5 times what it cost.
Yeah.
Movies don't really achieve
kitchen
that
scene,
nowadays.
I think that, the scene with the mum killing all the gremlins is the iconic scene that everyone went to go see it for. But that film just doesn't live on that scene alone. Obviously, it has to be an entertaining film. So, yeah, if it was just that one scene, it would have been forgotten about over time. But yeah, it's like you say, it's tight. There's not much in it that I don't think there's anything in it you could cut out.
No, I don't think you can. Yeah, I mean, the picture theatre scene with him in the picture theatre is just full of just utter nonsense. It's a representation in some cases of what doesn't happen in New Zealand in a picture theatre. When you go to the movies, New Zealanders are really quite good about it. They're not on their phone. They're not talking. They're not particularly loud. They're not boisterous. But in America, the picture going experience is very different. It's kind of more like Gremlins sitting in a picture theatre, and it's just chaos going on. People swinging around, and there's loud noises, and so they kind of, it almost feel like they try to depict that in the picture theatre with the Gremlins.
Yeah, West meets East. This is why.
Yeah.
This is why we have communism. Democracy creates these idiots.
Yeah. And the scene where all the gremlins are in various places just attacking people and causing chaos throughout the town it always stands out. You'd think that would be just a filler to transition into something, but it's a major sequence, and it's hilarious and terrifying at the same time. But there's a little part of you, I don't know how you feel about it. I feel like there's a little part of you that's rubbing their hands in glee. Because we don't actually see anybody die, but we know what's going on, and it's not good.
It's kind of what I was taken back to what Richard Pryor was doing in Superman 3, and it was like he was trying to do the same thing, but this was done so much better. We didn't get the animated traffic light coming in and fighting each other.
No, that just didn't work.
No. All right. Any final thoughts on this film before we wrap it up?
Not really. We do have some stuff coming up. We've got another podcast that me and Nacho are doing.
I forgot about
and Fred
that
as well. We should talk about.
Oh, Fred.
What am I doing?
Fred's going to come on as a guest sometime, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna rope you in probably soon.
Yeah. AJ's right. I am shit at doing it. So a little bit of housekeeping. I do have another podcast with AJ called Masters of the Dungeon, which is more tabletop RPG focused, where we seem to, we get other game masters on, and we talk about running games, and we focus on a certain topic, or we just go off on tangents. We've decided to put all our sort of tabletop RPG talk into another podcast, so we don't have to make Fred talk about it on a Sunday, because he likes a break from that sort of stuff. But he is contractually obligated to come on at some point, but I'm not going to force him.
That's right. Yeah.
We won't force him, because it will just be Fred having a rant about fucking why do I have to talk. I talk enough about this stuff. So
yeah.
But next week is Christmas. Do you want to? What should we do? So,
well, you tell us, and I'll tell you if I'm up for it. If you say Highlander 2, I'm not showing
you know
up.
what's a film
I refuse to talk about that movie. I don't care how bad.
What's a Christmas film I'd like to talk about that I've not seen for years, and it's actually directed by Chris Columbus. Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
God. I mean, I'll talk about it. I just don't know that I can stomach it. I don't think
Or,
so. I don't
or,
think
we,
so. I can handle it next week.
or we
But
could do Die Hard.
well, I'm fine with talking about Die Hard, but I don't want to talk about Jingle All the Way. I've had to watch a lot of really bad, shitty movies recently.
Yeah,
For
sorry.
this, and it would have been much. I would have been able to cope a lot more, I think, if I'd
I think
only had watched the
I think
first Superman.
Superman broke
But
AJ.
watching Superman 2, 3, and 4 was just it was hard. What I would say about Gremlins, though, I don't think they can remake this movie just because of the cultural climate right now, particularly in the States and other parts of the world. I wouldn't say so much in New Zealand. I
Mm,
think too much of the stuff that they put in the original movie, people would just not be able to deal with. I think
yeah,
it would create so much drama and nonsense that it just wouldn't work. And it would have to be toned down. You'd have people interfering, and you wouldn't get what the whole feel of that original movie was. It would just
Yeah.
get lost.
yeah,
And to be fair, I think the movie is aged pretty well.
Mm.
There are certain scenes that haven't aged that well, but the fact that they do kind of still look like puppets is actually endearing to the movie. And if they just made it all CGI, it just wouldn't. I don't think it would have the same impact. So I don't think they can remake this movie, not at this present time, and not in this current sort of um, intolerant
Well,
way of thinking.
weirdly, Gremlins 2 does actually have a parody of Trump Tower, so it is somewhat connected to this time and age. Because I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about Gremlins 2. That's a fucking weird film. It's just that film. Just yeah, it is
Yeah.
an insane. It is an insane film. This is when Joe Dante basically just went full Joe Dante and had no bad idea and was just like throwing ideas against the wall, and everyone was saying yes to him because
Yeah.
they wanted lightning in the bottle. It's a totally different film,
Hmm.
but it takes place in a building which is basically a parody of Trump Tower at the time in the 90s. Yeah, so it does have a weird connection, but
Yeah. It's got sexy gremlins. It's got sexy gremlins. We can't get around it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's got
I think give us a bit of space before we deal with that one,
yeah,
because that
It's
is
got-
a different
yeah.
animal.
Echoing what Fred said, yeah, this is a movie which is a good showcase of how back in the 80s we were already doing woke, but we were showing woke. We weren't talking about woke. We
Yeah.
weren't shoving woke in your faces and as some cause or justice. Like we were just fixing the movies and making strong female character leads and things like that instead
Yeah.
of bad storylines and shoving that shit into there and just changing things for a quota reason. They actually wrote really good movies. And I think we need to pay attention to that, go back to it, and basically kick the kicking and screaming, hysteric, and this narrative that they didn't exist is just false. I mean, we can go back and we can show you over and over and over again these perfectly good examples of movies which are showing, practicing what these people are preaching. Just like, well, where's your outrage? I mean, where is it stemming from in the first place? And really, it's got nothing to do with the content that we were watching. It's got to do with their I don't know, identity politics or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, look at Terminator, look at Alien.
Yep.
Strong female leads, great films.
But I mean, those are films where a lot of the characters, there's not one character written well, like all the characters are written well. And this is what happens in Gremlins. There's really only one character who isn't really written to the same level of everybody else, and that's Billy. And Billy gets a lot
I think that's last minute changes because obviously he was written and he was
as
going to be the lead.
12-year-old,
as a 12-year-old that was going to be the lead of the film, and then suddenly, when they screen tested Gizmo, Spielberg liked him so much that he's like, no, I don't. This character needs to stay in the film and be the lead. So suddenly he was sidelined to a co-part, and
maybe Corey Feldman was just such an asshole to deal with on set that.
No, he was lovely. He was a lovely kid apparently at the time. Yeah, like Spielberg, he almost became Elliot in E.T. It was between him and Henry Thomas, but like Henry Thomas just did such a fantastic.
His crying during the audition.
Fantastic audition, yeah. So, and Spielberg was like, "Hey, I really like you, and I'm going to put you in something." And Corey Feldman went on to have his own career after this. But I mean, I thought he was really cool. He was really like that. That sort of dynamic between him and Billy, I think, is what they've kind of now built on in Stranger Things with the dynamic between is it Steve, the older kid, and the younger kids, Dustin and Steve.
Yeah.
That feels like a similar kind of dynamic. That older brother, you're kind of cool, but come hang out and look at all my toys and yeah. Oh, where did you get this cool comic? And I've got this cool pet, and so
there was some of that in the Monster Hunter brothers that they played in Fright Night.
Lost Boys, you mean?
Oh, Lost Boys, Lost Boys. Sorry,
yeah. Which is that's Chris Columbus as well? No, Lost Boys isn't Chris Columbus.
No.
I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right, let's wrap it up. So thank you, everyone. We will think of something for Christmas, a Christmas-themed episode of sorts, and it obviously won't be Jingle All the Way. All I want is a Turbo Man.
Turbo Man.
Yeah.
No, that film is shit. Yeah, so I won't make them watch a shit film for Christmas. All right. Well, that's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
And it's good night from Stripe.
Little shit.
Yeah.
All right.